Yes, I mean, I know that certainly in the audits that I've had so far, particularly with like the new registrations or with the domestic dealings, the assessors have been very upfront in that process and going, look, we're learning as we go along as well. Nothing has been signed off without having yet another person review it. They literally go and sit with another assessor, they review everything, they make sure they've come to the same decision, and then it goes up the chain from there. And they've been really good about talking through that process with providers. So I think that part of it has been really good. I think the harder space where that's going to happen is within the CRICOS space. That seems to still be there's a lot more data-driven stuff happening, which is really interesting. And I think we're going to see a lot more data stuff. I think we're going to see a lot more things being driven by data moving forward. I think, as you touched on, AI has a lot of capacity. Personally, I'm over having people come to me and say, oh, we've got this great AI system that's going to write your content for you. It's going to write your assessments for you. It's going to do this, this, and that. I'm like, okay, what's the human component on that? What's the data that it's been built on? And I did an episode on this a couple of weeks ago, basically going, if you're building it on ChatGPT is built on the internet, and 90% of the internet is shit. So therefore, whatever system you're selling me is going to be shit. I want to know what data it's been built on. Like if an AI assessment builder was built on nothing but my assessments that had passed audit, that would be totally different to it's been built off the internet where 90% of the assessments that it's learnt from are crap. And I've been having arguments this week with the latest version of the bot because it's really, really focused on telling you what it thinks you want to hear, as opposed to, properly synthesizing data. Like my personal perspective is that this latest version is worse. And I know that, like, for us, that's one of the reasons why we'll be looking to create our own that's only built on our data. I just think it's going to continue to get, to some extent, it's actually going to continue to get worse, better, but also worse. And I think that this is where, from a people perspective, the tools that are out there are incredible, and there is no excuse for not following your data. I do this with CEOs all the time. Like, I sit down and I go, okay, here's your completion rate. Here's your completion rate by trainer. Here's your unit completion rate by trainer. Here's it by qual. Here's it by funding model. And when we start to break down that data, I get the same response from all of them. They're like, oh my God, that's amazing. And I'm like, yeah, it's been sitting here the whole time, dude. And then they can start to go, well, that's where the problem is in my business. And that's where the problem is in my business. And that's working really, really well. Why is that working so well? We're sitting on that beautiful 95%, 95% completion rate. We've got the timing happening correctly, whereas that course is blowing out to, it's taking 3 times longer than it's supposed to. So the regulator using data and businesses using data, there's so much more that can be done in that space. But it's understanding the human component that then needs to be a part of that. So it's a tool, not a solution. And I think industry-wise, we're still in very much the baby stages of that, and we've got a lot more mistakes to learn before we can get to using it in a sophisticated way as a tool.
Yeah, I think it might have been John Cotto said what gets measured can get managed. And I think that there's no excuse for us not doing that analysis to be informed about the decisions we make as leaders and as people-centric leaders and authentic leaders, but also demonstrating adaptive leadership. So with the pace of change, with AI, digital delivery, even that sort of transition over from a synchronous and asynchronous perspective over previous years, sort of more micro-credentials or just-in-time training, employer expectations changing, the rug pulled out at very short notice on funding or on approvals or courses changes. As leaders, we must all adapt quickly, and we need to be very much aware of what technology can supplement and support the human decisions, not replace. But it's very easy because we're so time poor and there's so many moving pieces and so many different pieces of data for us to try and analyze and understand and then make key decisions that can be impactful for our staff and our learners and our business overall. It's very easy to say, where do I get a quick win here? Right, we're all looking for quick wins to buy us time, to buy us energy, to give us freedom back, to actually get back to the passion of helping the students. But I think it's often the quick wins or those that look like they're easy wins look like them for a reason, but because there's something goes missing in between. So it's really about understanding that the adaptive leaders will actually test, they'll learn, they'll iterate instead of waiting for the certainty, and they'll say, look, we will keep working on this and we're on a journey. Let's use tools, let's discuss it as people, and let's sense check it. But also create that culture where staff can actually experiment. They can reflect, they can share what works using AI tools, using technology, and create that culture of innovation where people are not afraid to put forward an idea that may not work. Because it's only those few that do work that really move the needle for the business and for the people. And I think creating that culture of safety and sort of with the world changing so fast, realizing that perfection or the attempt for perfection can be paralyzing. And so we must get everything right because this consultant told me ASQA will beat down our door and steal our registration otherwise. It's an unhealthy mindset. I think the ability to accept that we won't get everything right and to actually be brave enough to pilot, to learn, to improve together. And that's not just within our organizations, that's across the community. I think that's a really exciting thing. Like how exciting is it to be alive in an age where generative AI has just come into full swing and there's new iterations released all the time, and there's these things that can help sense check our own thoughts, support our own views, and that can be from a whole range of areas, whether that be for personal health plans, through to growth, through to business ideas. There's never been a more exciting time to be alive, to use technology to support our ambitions. And I know we can be fearful of that. And we can say, well, is this going to replace me? I think the view of if this can add to superpowers for me to align with my passion and ambition, that's the goal, right? And it's, I guess, there is no excuse outside of time for not making yourself aware of what is available. And it's very confusing, of course, but it is so impactful to the efficiency and productivity and ability to effectively lead, where you sense check prior to conversations, that if you didn't use it, you're shortcutting yourself. And you're actually undermining your ability to be genuine in the impact you're able to have for the people who you lead, the learners and customers and employers who you support. And I think it's almost a level of respect that you do use this technology to sense check how it can be improved, but understanding that the whole thing about growth and about professional development and about actually being able to improve together to lift the tide for all boats, I guess, across the sector, that purpose-driven leadership, that's really a mindset. And it's really a culture in organizations. And it's one that people need to maintain and make time for, and say, this is not a matter of me getting out of looking at my data or doing validations or all these things that seem to be burning platforms I need to spend my time on, but saying, I'm going to carve out time to learn. And I'm going to trust that investment of time that I've carved out to learn this new AI tool, to listen to this thought leader, to listen to Lauren's latest guest on a tip or a trick or a tool they've referenced, I know that's going to pay dividends. I'm going to lock in the time to do it, and give yourself the freedom and the approval to spend the time. It might be sitting in a chair with the earphones on, might be sitting in the sauna, might be having a coffee or whatever it is, but give yourself the time, because you're going to miss the opportunity otherwise. And all that's going to happen is you're going to go deeper into the nuance and not be able to step up and see all the moving pieces and the opportunities. I know it's hard, but I think it's a matter of starting by locking in the importance of that investment of time.
Like you and I have gotten on the phone multiple times over the years and kind of gone, oh, I'm looking at this. This is how I'm interpreting. I mean, we did it a couple of weeks ago. I called you up and I was like, I'm looking at this TAE unit. this is how I'm interpreting this language. Am I getting this right? And I'll do that with Mark Ratcliffe, or I'll do that with Vanessa McCarthy. Like, I've got this great community of people that I can pick up the phone to and go, mate, this is what I'm thinking. Am I on the right track? And I think that having that has been one of the greatest things for me, to be able to build as a practitioner and feel comfortable in the advice that I'm giving to people and stuff like that. That is definitely, like, that's a missing component for so many people that are either new to the industry or that don't engage. And so it's, I participated in my first VetQI event a couple of weeks ago, and it was great to see, so many people. And I think that the conference coming up in September has got like more than 400 people attending. What's your experience been like with the VetQI community? Like, is that kind of one of the visions that I think that community seems to have, is like, we're going to try and share as much information from as many different voices as possible, so that you can, as an RTO owner, make a connection at that event with, 2 or 3 people. And rather than listening to that one consultant and just only being led by that person and having all of that information, having everything being driven by that, you can check with a couple of different voices on things and go, does this make sense? Can I justify this in terms of the standards in my own head as well? Is that kind of, that seems to me to be like my perspective of the community. What's your view of how that community is growing?
Yes. So one thing that recognise myself and others as a bit of a community across the sector is that, particularly in times of change, leadership and support is not always about just giving the direct answer. It's about creating the space and creating the community for people to find those answers together, and to not just get a technical answer, but to also feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves that they can implement back in their organisation. So the idea behind Vet Quality Innovation was really bringing together like-minded, passionate individuals who have a primarily focus on compliance and quality within the tertiary education sector, as well as those who want to actually use technology and innovation and AI to supplement that student experience and to understand how they can double down on the human component through using technology to support that. So the concept is to bring those thought leaders and those experts to the table, not just to say, sit here and listen to me, I am the master, and then go away and go, okay, I'll listen to the master, here we go. But to open the dialogue that we all work together and go, okay, so how can we implement this? What are you doing? This is what I did. Here's where I did something and failed. You'll learn a lot more from hearing where someone did something and failed, and the lessons they learned and the way they then pivoted. And the fact that they picked themselves up and said, great, that's one more thing I failed at. Now I'm getting closer to getting the right solution. So it's a mindset thing. And also from a mental health perspective, from a level of support and care for ourselves. And self-care is unbelievably important. And myself and not speaking for others like me, but I think Lauren, we work at a similar pace. You can sometimes get so passionate about a project or trying to help or so on, you don't realise where you're redlining yourself. Now, I understand that with all the change going on across the sector, there are a lot of people who are burnt to a level of, gosh, I'm just surviving here, and now I've got this fear of implementation. The whole idea of VetQI is bringing people together at the most cost-effective price possible. It's not a for-profit organisation as far as for the purpose of trying to be commercially driven like others. It's a genuine purpose of a vehicle for community, and it's partnered with the Quality Network, the Quiet Network, which is 30 years in having compliance managers and quality managers together with that exact same partnership approach of, guys, don't be fearful in a safe environment. What are you trying to achieve? What have you found that works and what doesn't? Is there something you've done that you're happy to share with me that can save me 6 months of planning and mistakes and so on? Because I'd really appreciate it. And there's a level of that reciprocity of, hey, we're all passionate, we're all got the same intent. Let's make sure we're part of something. And I almost argue, you talked about earlier about the regulator sometimes engaging with those who are already doing best practice, because they wouldn't be in the room unless they were trying to do the right thing at least. And I think it is telling who is part of these things. Like there's an event 3rd of September, W Hotel in Brisbane, 26th and 27th of March in Melbourne next year, which will be huge. I know it sounds like it's a bit of a sales pitch, right? But my genuine view is if you are within hours of Brisbane in September and you are passionate about this sector and you have a key role to play within a registered training organisation, why would you not, for a very small amount of money that just covers your food and drinks, in reality, why would you not get there to be part of that conversation? Why would you not want to hear from Jobs and Skills Councils, Jobs and Skills Australia, the regulator who not only speaks in 2 different forums, including an open Q&A with myself, which is a bit of trust there, but we'll see how hard I go. So an open dialogue, but also has the largest booth in the whole thing as an engagement booth to have direct conversations with providers on challenges they have. Now, so sort of hand up to how amazing that is from a regulatory approach, from what used to be a very combative approach from the regulator under a previous regime. Probably regime might be the right term. To actually say we want to be part of the solution and engage and have, in Melbourne, they had 4 different ASQA staff there in conversations all through the day. And the overwhelming feedback was, I got to speak to a real person who genuinely wanted to help me. What's going on? I read on LinkedIn that they're the devil. Why is these people trying to help me from ASQA? And I just think it's an amazing level of engagement. It's same as Melbourne at March next year. And then Lauren, you're speaking as an expert in this space and thought leader. And we the approach where we got together as a sort of a committee and said, who do you want to get involved? It was everyone who wants to be part of the solution. And it means we've got too many speakers in a short amount of time. But it's not about simply being the expert from the stage. It's about opening the topics. And then what we did was we actually then agreed to put any money that might be surplus in partner fees or anything else into a networking event that costs nothing, just to ensure there was no money coming out of it. Because when do you get to stand around for 90 minutes at the end of a day and reflect on the learnings, meet the speakers who spoke to certain topics, talk to the partners about the tool that someone referenced, and have some canapes and soft drink or Chardonnay, whatever's good for you at that point. It's trying to be genuine in what's doing. Hopefully people see that. There's no personal gain in these things. But as I said earlier, in a lot of things I do, and I'm on several non-for-profit boards and 2 charities at the moment too. I get energized by trying to be part of something myself. And I know you're the same. And but this series is not too disconnected from that concept of giving back, giving value, opening the dialogue. And if people want to ask me a question about something I said today or you afterwards, like we are open. I put my mobile numbers on my LinkedIn and on every other thing possible. If someone calls me up and says, you haven't met me, but I've got this challenge, I go, fantastic.
Okay,
this is what I'm about, right? So, and I know you're the same. You'll help wherever you can.
Yes, I mean, look, I've been approached on a lot of times to kind of go, oh, well, if you promote our product, we'll give you a commission percentage. And I always have the same response for people. I'm like, I just don't do commissions with anyone, because if I'm going to promote, whether it's a student management system or it's a course or it's a product or it's a service, I want to do it because I want people to know that I'm doing it because I genuinely feel that it's going to help them, as opposed to because I'm getting, a cut or whatever. Like, I've just never operated that way. And the whole reason why I've been doing podcasts, and I thank God I've been doing them for like more than 10 years now. So, but honestly, the advice hasn't changed. I just finished doing our series on principles of assessment, rules of evidence, which I do every single year. And I went back and I looked at one from like 4 or 5 years ago, and I'm like, advice really hasn't changed. The advice has not changed. But it's just about, trying to make people find information in an easier way and be able to make it digestible and everything like that as well. And the feedback that I love attending conferences. That's my only that's my main professional development throughout the year. And it doesn't generally happen from me attending a seminar. What it happens is from the conversations that I have outside of that, when RTOs come up to me and go, oh, well, we had this recent interaction and this is what we were told and this is kind of how we've approached it, or somebody going, I've created this, like I met when talking to this guy, who is he's an AI expert, and some of the approaches that he's taking, I think, are really innovative and will actually move the sector. But he's also super aware of he's like, yeah, but I need to build this on the right data. So he's out there trying to find the right data to build it on, to really create something beautiful and quality, and incorporate that human element into it. So to me, being able to attend these sorts of events, and I understand, for some providers, every year we attend VELG, and we'll be at VELG again this year. For me and my team, that's a $15,000, $20,000 investment between hotels, the tickets, the flights, all of that, all of that sort of stuff. It's a big expense. And I get that for a lot of organizations. But one of the great things that I do see happening is that we have a lot more events happening where, you don't have to go and do this one event and have it be your whole budget for the year. If there's a little event happening in Melbourne, and then there's a little event happening in Thing, and I know that, with the training package rollouts and everything like that, there's going to be sessions happening literally in every single state around the country. Full disclosure, doing some work for SAXA, and they are planning on going to every single state and having a physical day in every single state where you as an RTO representative can go and be there with, 20 other industry representatives and RTOs focused on your industry area, make those connections, have those conversations, being able to pick up the phone and go, hey, this is where my business is at. We're looking at doing this. Do you know the name of somebody who can help me get this course into my LMS, that can help me build this course content, that can help me build out that new feature to do the automated online enrollments, that can help me look at this data and figure out where the problems are in my business? Those connections that you make at these sorts of events are really what will change, you being able to step up and become a more effective business owner and become a more effective leader. And that's just my experience. You find those connections who become your mentors, and over time, those mentors become your colleagues, and then that becomes your community, of these people to help continue to move you forward.
And I think there's such a broad range of professional development communities to be part of, whether it be peak bodies, whether it be some of the organisations you've mentioned, whether it be VetQI, which obviously I'm passionate about, as well as being a TECA director, and I'm the chair of the Quality Education Training Network, and I'm the chair of the Institute of Learning Performance, and I'm chair of others that are probably not as direct on this topic, but it's be part of something. So because the antidote to change fatigue is connection.
Yeah.
Knowing we're not just carrying the weight alone, right? That the weight is always going to be there. The change, I'm 23 years in the sector, and every year it's a matter of someone going to me, this is the most change I've ever seen. This is just crazy. Just the change. The weight is not going to get any lighter. Our backs need to get stronger to actually carry through with resilience, maintaining that purpose, how we navigate that together, right? It's about finding a way to remain and stay positive and passionate through navigating that change. And the way we do it is through working together on it. And also just remembering that this is a human game. Vocational education training is about changing the lives of individuals. So behind every policy or every compliance change is an actual human. It's a person, right? It's a trainer, it's a learner, it's an employer. And so we've got to sort of keep our focus. We've got to make sure that when everything else feels uncertain, we know that, the compliance is important, and it keeps the doors open, and we must do it. It's not a maybe, it's a must. But the culture and our mindset and our focus is what sustains that excellence and sustains our ability to keep driving forward. And you need that community. You need that connection. The VetQI arm and a lot of other things I'm involved in, you're involved in, is maintaining the connection. And I would say too that and blokes are the worst at this, not reaching out when they do need support. and they do say, I'm feeling vulnerable here, but I've got to tough it out. I've got to keep pushing forward. If you have someone who you know has had to navigate change with funding, with regulation, with losing a staff member who was helping with the standards or anything else, I highly encourage you to give them that quick text or that call. And it doesn't need to be, hey, I know you're probably struggling here. It just needs to be, hey, just check in and see how you're going. Now, it opens the space for people to be aware that they're seen, that they're acknowledged, they have an opportunity for conversation. Whether they take it on or not, it is just so unbelievably meaningful. And I've had that in my life. I try to do that myself, not as often as I should or not as often as I want to. But these are things we need to give ourselves a nudge as well, because for everything that we're feeling, the uncertainty, the nervousness, the physical ramifications of us trying to burn candles at all ends, we have many colleagues who are in a similar situation. And together, it might have been I don't know if it's a Buddhist principle of a problem shared is a problem halved. So, let's share our problems, let's share ideas, and let's get excited about it, right? About what we can do to navigate through it together. And whether that be through professional development, any other community, just put your hand up and be part of it. It's, it doesn't have to be an expensive peak body membership as much as, any membership's amazing, and professional development, any spend is good spend, because you should invest in yourself and invest in others. You can do it online. You can do it free. You can do it. You talked about the free webinars that VetQI was running that you're part of. This is bringing in 4 to 6 experts that would be hard to otherwise get that level of advice for free, because they want to help. So, why wouldn't you go in there and be part of that as a minimum, and then put your hand up and go, hey, can I just ask this question? Because in my experience, and I get this a lot, people say, I've seen you chair all these government panels and speaking on these things. You come across as a bit of a data nerd and very sort of rigid. And then they meet me and they're like, you are a completely different person than you come across when you're trying to be very rigid. And as I've matured, and particularly in my leadership over the years, I've tried to be more myself and more genuine. And sometimes that might cross a line of making a joke that might not be as PC as you know, as it could be. But I think I'm more comfortable in myself. And I hopefully that means I can be more accepted by people going, hey, I think he does want to help. I don't think he's trying to pull the wool over my eyes here. And I think that's the way we actually work together, is to start from a level of human connection. And then we say, right, what's these blooming standards we've got to navigate? How are we going to get through it? And I think that's the level of conversation we should all be having.
I know that, whenever people talk to me about the conversations that they see on this channel, the first thing that they say is they're like, oh, it's just like being in a room and watching people have a conversation. I'm like, yeah, that's the idea. Like, it was so fortunate, in how I came up through this sector. I started in it as literally a single mom living back home with my parents, not a freaking dollar to my name. And people managed to get a job in this little RTO, managed to connect with people that then brought me up and brought me through everything. And I worked my bum off as well as part of that process. But being able to have those connections with everything that was happening, everything that was happening in my personal life as well. Having people that I could pick up the phone to and go, this is what's happening with the RTO at the moment. And inevitably that conversation would start with I'm super, super stressed out, but then would eventually lead into us just piss taking each other and having a laugh over and going, this is our life, this is it, knowing that I wasn't the only one feeling that way and going through all of that has been, it's been an absolute saving grace. And yeah, 100%, running the candle at both ends. And I have no issues working a 60, 70-hour week. And one of the things that having people like yourself and others that all do sort of the same thing, we can then check in with each other and go, okay, but when was the last time you went and sat with the chickens? That is, I'm weird. I live on a farm, so I go sit with chickens, and we've lost 3 this week to a hawk, which has been that's been our outside stress this week. So I'm currently hawk proofing our chicken area at the moment in my off hours. But Yeah, like it's about being able to make those connections with people. And through that, you will find a much better balance from a business perspective, from a quality perspective,
Yeah.
from the innovation perspective. And I think it helps from a personal perspective as well.
Yeah, and I think Rob Williams put it well that everyone's fighting a battle we may know nothing about, and sometimes it's a matter of starting with that check-in with others, but also checking with ourselves. And I did something last night that I have never done, but I planned on doing for a long time. My wife said to me, um, through a lot of things going on through workplace and environment, she goes, you look like you need some way to unwind or disconnect. And she goes, I've never seen you unwind or disconnect in 20 years because what drives you is to continue in passion and motion and so on. But I did my first guided meditation in my life, actually. And I've done a lot of audiobook meditations, and I'll go and sit in the farm. I own a property in regional Victoria that I was unbelievably privileged to be able to buy off my late father's estate that's been in our family for 170 years. So, that's my getaway with my children at the moment, which I can't talk about. More importantly, the ability to create space for that breathing and that fresh air. But I actually turned my phone off for the first time, I think, potentially ever since I've had a mobile phone last night for an hour, and I lay still for an hour. And the reason I'm reflecting on this is, don't think that because I'm trying to talk about leadership principles or lessons I've learned or things you should do, I'm trying to soapbox anyone, right? I'm on a journey the same as everyone else and have as many challenges and fears and uncertainties as anyone else. I just try and take that learning to say, you're not alone and here's what I've found might work, but I'm not telling you how to do anything. I just want to let you know I'm part of the conversation. But even for myself, as someone who lives and breathes this stuff and is mental health first aid Australia qualified and has been in space for a long time, I wasn't making a space for myself. I wasn't checking in. And it took a bit of a kick up the bum from my wife. And you probably will
Why is
guess,
it good for?
I really did struggle, Lauren, in being in silence and stillness, but it was good for me. And I'll do it again. So it's a great thing. But I guess check in with yourself too, as far as how much are you redlining to realize that you need to let someone know, hey, I wouldn't mind some support here in whatever capacity that is, even for a chat. Right. And there's a whole range of channels for that, through whether it be employee assistance programs through your own organizations, whether it's through a friend, whether it be someone you haven't reached out to for a while. And I've always found it helpful to ask ourselves, who is it in my life or that used to be in my life that after I've spoken to them, I feel clear and I feel emboldened and I feel like I'm re-energized? And then equivalently, who do I talk to or spend time with where I go away and it's almost like I've had a pie from the mushroom lady and I'm twitching and I'm who has just poisoned me with their hate and their vitriol. Now, when they're family members, sometimes you can't get out of those conversations, and I won't go into my large family. But who energizes you? Who should you be around? Who can you reach out to? Just take the time to check in, right? Because we've got the changes across the sector in a whole range of areas, but it's more than that. It's not about. I know sometimes these sessions go into the technical nuance of outcome standard 2.5 and and that's important, and you've got to do that because we want to meet our compliance obligations. But it's all got to start with people. It's got to start with ourselves and making sure we've got the space for us to be the best we can be and support people around us through leadership, because that's the only way that we take people on the journey. The purpose that we have and that sense of self, that's what keeps us steady when other things around us seem uncertain. So, my recommendation as someone who is on that journey myself and has a long road ahead is to check in with yourself, be kind to yourself, give yourself space to realize you won't get everything perfect, but we all are on that journey, right? And we're not alone on that. And whether that be through experts or industry leaders or friends or family, the starting point is to have that reflection.
Yeah, and just being able to step back and touch grass, and connect with things that are real, as opposed to, I think that it's very easy as business owners to live chronically online. And it's important to understand that those people who live chronically online, that is not the real world. It's not representative of the real world in any way, shape, or form. Stepping back, touching grass, going and stepping into a classroom and watching what happens in your classroom, or in the trade centers and things like that. That's the worthwhile stuff. That's where you kind of, that's where you can get your mojo back a little bit. We are coming up, and both of us, I'm sure, have meetings to go on to after this. So I'm going to finish up with one conversation. What is one thing that we are not talking about in the vet sector that we should be talking about in the vet sector?
Good question. I think it's the polarizing views of training package reform, of moving to an outcome standard focus, and a push by some in key influential positions for a revolution rather than evolution of the sector. I think a cliff is coming where there will be a huge number of qualifications all change within an extremely short period of time, at the same time that RTOs are trying to navigate their first sort of reviews of 2025 standards, and are they actually meeting the intent that they're when implementing those from the 1st July 2025, and also a deteriorating number of those who remain in the vet sector because they've found it such a challenging and complex environment, and they've found there's almost an easier way to make a dollar, even if it's not as aligned with their passion, that doesn't have so much change and uncertainty and so on. So I think all of those, I know these are some moving pieces, but I think I'd centralize them back to, we need to keep our people in the workforce who generally want to change lives through education. And the way we do that is having a human-centric conversation that doesn't shy away from saying, we know there's all these movements that are either well-intentioned but poorly implemented, or poor timing, or so on, because it's always through good ambition. I don't think anyone makes any change in the sector, whether stands, try and measure anything else, through bad goals. I just think that sometimes it's a matter of, let's move on to the new thing and throw mud at the old. I haven't seen that in over 2 decades in the sector ever work well. I think it has to be an evolution by first acknowledging what are the amazing things we do in the sector and how do we complement and build the gaps. Not, let's have the baby out with the bathwater. Everyone yesterday, they got no idea. We're the new team, let's start again. I think it's unhelpful. I think it's poor change management, and I think there's a human impact on that. And I don't know whether the timelines over the next 24 months are going to support many positive outcomes if we don't realise the change fatigue, if we don't make sure that as leaders and as people, we stay curious, we stay connected, and we stay committed to that shared purpose, and people give that leadership with empathy, with courage, and with saying, we're going to have to adapt, but let's look at the road ahead and navigate it together. Let's bring people's hearts and minds on the journey, because, and I'm involved in a lot of these policy conversations. I've learned pretty early that sometimes if you're not at the table, you feel like you can be on the menu. So I try to be at as many tables as possible and make sure I can at least put my best foot forward with advice that I see of potential cliffs coming. And I have a little bit of fear that we're going to lose track, not through bad intention, but we're going to lose track of the impact to training providers and to learners if we don't step this change out as an evolution with those aspirations towards the purpose of why we're all in this sector. So it's a big topic. It's probably a part 2, Lauren, after I've had a few more coffees. But and I'd love to discuss it, because it's I think unless you can see the firestorm coming, you can't prepare for it, but you also can't put your hand up and be part of the conversation. So actually, my final point, if this is okay, and it's about a 2 hour and 35-minute point, if that's I'm sure you're fine with that, Lauren. So my final point is, be part of the solution. Jobs and skills councils right now are begging for people to be part of technical committees. Jobs and Skills Australia have working group peak bodies through TAFE directors, through ATOA, through ITECA, are always asking for people to come to the table to give their eyes and be part of give their views and be part of the solution. Right? I know it's hard to commit the time, but it is impactful to making sure there's a level of pragmatism in what's implemented. Right. And I put my hand up more than I should because I want to make sure that there's not silly decisions being made and at least someone's tried to sense check it. It is so important that if you're passionate about a topic and you think you can add value, you put your hand up in part of the conversation, because it's very hard in 2 years if you say, gosh, I can't believe that qualification is not aligned with what the industry needed. People like me and others will say, well, why didn't you join that committee and be part of the solution? So I think, and there is that opportunity right now. Okay, so just have a look through any of the job skills councils. They're all got committees open, all through peak bodies. And if you don't know, send me a message on LinkedIn and say, where do you reckon I should go to add value and be part of something? Send it to Lauren.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a whole list, and I'll probably say to you, hey, let's grab a coffee and let's have a chat. Let me see how I can give you some guidance, because I enjoy that stuff. But just reach out, right? The first step is taking action and be part of the solution.
Absolutely. It's antithetical to vet to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We are not a pass-fail system. We are competent, not yet competent. And so if we're not yet competent, it just means we've got to make those few little tweaks and take those extra steps forward until we get there. Andrew, this has been an amazing conversation as always. Guys, if you've stuck through all the way to the end, good on you listening to us dribble on for the last hour and a half. I will put all of Andrew's contact details below. I will also put the details for the VetQI conference. Andrew and I will both be there in September in Brisbane. We really hope to see you there. Otherwise, thank you so much, guys. This is Lauren Boonhollows for NOI Education Services.